48F electric cars continued. Now, I refer you to 47 or an earlier video I made on the subject of electric cars. I do accept being biased against all things green, not that I'm not interested in the environment. I say that the green agenda is a fake agenda and harmful to the environment. Now, among the comments I got was one from Indy May. Great information once again. Loving your wise talk, so much sense. Well, fair enough. Thank you for that. Now, the other one, Vincent O'Donnell. It's hard work being sensible in a mad world. That's okay. And Patricia, says thanks. And Richard Martin, great comedy. I don't exactly know. Does he mean the comedy is that I'm making a hash of it, or what he means? Maybe he'd clarify on that. And Ian Fleming says, I have a 99 Toyota Corolla, and I do see a lot of those around, and it's running perfectly. They can stuff their electric cars up. Well, we'll not go on there with that. But so there are a lot of Toyota Corollas 1999. They were a bit of a granny of a car, but they were a great car. And Dean Walker says, okay, Boomer, I don't know what he means. I take it that I don't know why some of these comments don't make sense, but I want to go over Jim Murphy's comments. I'm inclined to think he may be in America. I'm not sure of that, but he says EVs are only a bit heavier than the equivalent internal combustion engine vehicle. The original tires on my EV lasted over 60,000 miles. The second set are lasting that long. Now 60,000 miles is a very high mileage, but then I'm a farmer in Ireland driving with pulling trailers and all that kind of thing, and in the worst conditions, and I don't get anything near that size. They get an odd nip on stones going out between gaps and fields and all that. So it seems a bit high to me, but I'm not questioning him on that. That would be great. Now all that would mean is that any bias that electric cars are hardened tires would be neutralized. That's all it means. So if people are considering that they might get less mileage on their tires, and if that's a factor, well, just bear in mind Jim Murphy's statement. If it's true, that would seem to say that they're just as good. I would imagine a slightly heavier car would be harder on tires, but Jim doesn't say where the driving is done or under what conditions or anything else. So we'll yield on that until I hear more, because I simply will not give an opinion unless I have spoken to reliable people who I can trust. Now, he also makes the point that the lithium-ion cells on modern EVs are 3.2 volt empty and 4.2 volt full, not just 2 volts per cell. Hands up on that, because all the batteries, the lead acid batteries and all the various batteries are 1.5 to 2 volts. But lithium ion is different, and I'll tell you why I think he's right on that. It's that if you look at your mobile phone battery, it's about that's about the power of it. It's 3.7, I think, in some of them, and it can go up to 4 and that volts. Now, this doesn't alter the fact that the battery in an electric car is made up of thousands of single cells of that power between what he says there is between 3.2 and 4.2. I'm not taking an issue with that. It doesn't affect whether you should buy an electric car or not, but he seems to be right on that. And as I say, the evidence on the batteries I see, I didn't investigate, would indicate he is. But it doesn't affect the thing. I'm not contesting him in that, and I delight in being corrected where I'm wrong. Now, he says there is no rule against charging an EV in California at any time of day. There were 2 to 3 days in summer of 2022 during an extreme heat wave when EV owners were asked to refrain from charging between 3 and 9. But it was only a request. Well, really, what's the difference in a request and an order? I presume they couldn't enforce the order. How would they catch you out? I don't buy that. The fact is, he even admits there was. And I saw it on the internet there during the summer where people were asked not to charge their cars at certain times. And there were restrictions in the UK also. So I'm inclined to think that it's an issue if there are more electric cars, how they're going to be charged. If someone needed to charge during those hours of those days, they did. They did, but they didn't do it with the approval of the grid. Most EVs are charged overnight, probably true, after midnight when electric rates are lower. So the request to delay charging was trivial to honour. I rarely charge my between 3 p.m. and midnight. But the point is, with a diesel or a petrol car, you can go into the filling station and top up anytime. And even in my area, there's nearly a filling station in every town that you put in your card and you get out the fuel. There's an all-night filling station in Cavan Town. There's an all-night automatic one would go in Ballyborough. There's an automatic pump that doesn't need attendant for diesel. Now diesel only, I must say, in Kingscourt, and there is a filling station in Dundalk that's the same. So there, and Navan has them also. So the point about it is that there's no restriction at all. The fact that most people charge overnight. Well, what if you're working nights? You see, that is an admission that there is a restriction on the time of charging. Again, not to fight with Jim. Now I'm going to go to his next post. 2012 and 2013 Teslas are selling for 35 to 40,000 US dollars, somewhat higher on average than Mercedes S-Class cars, and similar age and miles. Resale is very good. Now, I have to say that if you look at DoneDeal and the Irish online car sales, I mean, you can see a Tesla there, or you can see even a good Volkswagen up to 37 or 8,000. There's one, I think, 2019, and it's 53,000 for a second-hand car. But you must remember, at the moment, there is a novelty value to electric cars. Unsuspecting people think they are the last word. There is no negative comment about them. It's only when a friend of mine went to buy a particular car, a Mazda, that he discovered he couldn't put a drawbar on it. So you're not being told the facts. The fact that people are paying that for them is all very fine. But why? And is it a good investment? I told the case here of a very respectable, hard-working woman who's part of a company that has a business in the northeast of Ireland and in near Limerick, down near Limerick somewhere, also another subsidiary. And she travels up and down, I think it's once a fortnight, I presume, to check how things are there. And she bought a new electric vehicle, and I'm 99% sure it was a Tesla, as a company car, getting the benefit in kind tax and all that sort of stuff. And I saw her driving a diesel after, and I went and inquired, and I had to go to a lot of trouble to try and find out what had taken place. And she said she loved the car, but it didn't do what it said on the tin. And what that meant was that she couldn't go to Limerick and back the one day. She had to stay over. So this has to be factored in. You don't have to do that with a petrol or a diesel car. He then goes on to say there are many times when an EV driver will get to a charge site and find all the chargers occupied. But that does not mean they will wait 5 hours. Most people will only stop at the public charger for 30 to 60 minutes. I'd say that's kind of right. Who would want to stay any longer? I mean, if they're staying 60 minutes, I personally cannot give 60 minutes to anybody. And most charge sites have multiple cords. Some have, depends on where you are. I have arrived at a full charger site only 2 times out of 200 times and found queues. Both times someone finished charging and my turn came up in 10 minutes. So you don't have to do that at the petrol station. Now he goes on to say cobalt production is problematic, but driving petrol cars does not eliminate your use of cobalt. oil refineries use cobalt as a catalyst to produce gasoline, diesel and kerosene. As I understand it, cobalt is going through a bit of a tight squeeze at the moment, with a lot of it produced in Siberia, and I hear nothing anywhere that the threat to the fuel of the world is cobalt. And how did they produce petrol during the war? Was it all cobalt? I understand it's distilled like alcohol or whiskey or gin. It's distilled in a fractional still. Now there may be some cobalt used. I don't actually know. I will check it. But it doesn't wash, in my opinion, because the cobalt in the electric car is needed in the car itself. It's any rechargeable battery cannot use zinc like a potassium battery, an alkaline battery. It cannot use zinc, which is usually used. Sometimes there's steel and zinc or whatever. It has to be, I think it's cobalt is one, and there's some other metals have to be used. And that is scarce, and there goes a lot of that in an electric car. So I don't think anyone that thinks that, well, we're not going to get petrol or diesel in future because there's no cobalt. I don't buy it. I simply do not buy it. Now, he says there are hundreds of 2012 and 2013 Model S Teslas for sale in the USA in 2022. These 9 and 10-year-old cars are still in good shape. Their batteries do not die out after 8 years or less. So we're on 11 minutes now. I'm going to make 2 videos on that. Now, one of the things I want to do, and I'm going to come back to it in a second video, is last night there's a single charger in Navan, County Meath, and I have a cousin's wife who bought a Nissan Leaf. I spoke of it before. The charger unit where it accepts the power gave trouble, and it cost $1,000 to fix it. It was fixed, and the next thing was she noticed that it would not take it would not take the household normal overnight charge. She installed a charger at her house. The condition of the charger is that you remove all your showers. That's quite obvious. Electric shower is very heavy on fuel, and if you have the electric shower and the car charging, you're going to overload the system, and that tells you how expensive it must be to charge it. Now, in the Nissan Leaf, the slow charger, the ordinary charger for the household or on the street, is in a very difficult place. It is not easy accessible. It's a way in where it takes the most of a day with a mechanic to get at it, get it out, and get a replacement in. It takes the most of another day. It's €3,000 or plus to get the unit installed. That might include the unit itself. Now bear in mind, I know well what's in that. There's an inverter. It's a single phase power supply, goes in 220 volts. There's an inverter, there are capacitors, and there's conditioners that reduce the power down, transformer down to the battery voltage and feeds it into the battery. That's all right. It's converted to DC power. The battery then, when you're driving, converts it to AC 3-phase power to use on induction motors. I could lecture on the subject. But the point is, she could not go home from work because the Nissan Leaf will not take the slow charge. So she went to Navan, and when she rang the crowd in Navan, when she arrived there, it wasn't working. She rang, I think it's DSB, whoever's running it, there's a number on them, and he said it was broke. There was no plans to fix it. It could be fixed tomorrow or the next day or the day after. There was absolutely no urgency or care on the company that supplies the electricity to those machines. He didn't give a hoot. Work it out yourself. Faced with that, she took a chance and drove to Kells with no heater on. And when she got to Kells, she got the fast charger and she got it charged up. It goes to 120 on the Nissan Leaf. She got it charged up, and she got it up to about 110, and she got home. So there's the Navan charge. There is Jim Murphy's claim that there's no problem with chargers. There is a huge problem with chargers. The other thing, if you live in a town on a mile out and you leave in your car to get charged, what do you do while it's charging? Can you go home? If you can't drink nowadays and drive, what do you do with that hour while it's being charged? And I see there's a white one in one town, and it's there every Saturday morning. Somebody obviously leaves them in and somebody collects them, or do you take a taxi? So you have to factor in that fact. So I've given you those two points, and maybe I'd finish on this. No, I'm not. I'll come back to some of the stuff. But remember, when you turn on your heater or your wiper motor or your lights on an electric car, everything comes out of the battery. Everything comes out of the battery. A heater is very hard on electricity in the battery. It will reduce your range. If it's raining, the wipers will do the same. And what happens if you have kids in the car? You can't turn on the heater if the range is low. Oh, they'll say that's not the case. That's not the case. The sellers of the Nissan Leaf, and it's not in it's not in my immediate area. There is a Nissan garage very close to me, but it's not them. Tells her they never had this problem before. We never had it before. Another garage down the country which sells Toyotas, which were great cars, but they're not making any, as far as I understand, they're not making any plain internal combustion engine cars anymore. Says, oh, they're the future, oh, they're the future. Oh, they'll never give a bit of trouble. They'll never give a bit of trouble. Well, they would say that, wouldn't they? But I know a man, maybe my vintage, he's not into anything about windmills or anything like that, and I had a call to his house to get a job done on a piece of timber, and his daughter drove in with a brand new Toyota RAV car, a brand new one. It was a hybrid. All there were gung-ho, great buy, expensive but great machine. They had it a week and they thought it was good. I was speaking to him and his daughter only about 8 days ago, and they would never buy another one. You charge it up all night expensively at your house. You drive it out the road, and when you get about 6 miles, it'll beep beep and tell you the battery's empty. You convert over to the engine, which is a 2.5 litre petrol engine. Nobody would buy a 2.5 litre petrol car in their right mind. You convert over to that. The engine has to pull the car and charge the battery, and it'll pass everything except a petrol pump. It's taking a mint of money to run the Toyota RAV, and yet they tell you there's no problem. Now, there are some facts, and we're going to come back to a few more in a while. I want to hear from Jim Murphy and what he has to say. Where are you running this car that you get 60,000 miles on a set of tires? Is it America or what is it? And we'll tease this out, not to say I will reject everything. We have to tease it out and use our ordinary experiences and knowledge to see what the facts are. Okay? We'll see you back. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. See you back soon.